What is going on? And welcome back to an episode of First and 56, brought to you by Sideline Sports. Rondo Griffin, Anthony Gooley, your host as always. Marcus Martin could not be here. Obviously, send your prayers out to that guy. He is currently in the ER, so don't know all the details yet. We'll keep you guys updated. But again, obviously, thoughts and prayers for him. We hope he could be here, but he couldn't. But Goulet, we had a lot to talk about. Obviously, a lot of things have happened within the past week. Headlined by one and giant thing. You guys see the title, so you obviously already know what has transpired, what's gone down. We talked a lot about it off the air. It's about time to bring those thoughts to the screen. So, Goulet, it's come out that Colts corner Isaiah Rodgers is getting tapped in a potential gambling ring here. And we know what happened 2 years ago when it came to Calvin Ridley and the suspension that he got, everything he had to deal with. They're saying that, obviously, and it's still subjective. We're still waiting for all the details to come out, but they're saying that he potentially did more than what Calvin Ridley did. So, Anthony, the first thoughts when just the rumor came out, because for a while we didn't even have a name. And with what we know now, just where's your head with this?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, my first reaction was it's an unfortunate situation, especially, with anybody involved, especially with Isaiah Rodgers. I think the kid, he made a mistake. I'm not really, gonna, beat down on him too hard just because, he's had a lot of people just, been talking down on his name. And for good reason, because he did make a lot of mistakes. But, I'm not going to continue to, just bash him. What I think he did was really stupid, especially just like you said, the NFL really did crack down on Calvin Ridley. And even recently after that, I believe there was a few players from the Lions and I think a few players from Washington that also got suspended for betting, Jameson Williams being one of them. That was like one of the big names lately. So I think that, especially with Ridley getting busted last year, I don't know, what the thought process was really. When the news first came out, we didn't really get any names, but all I seen at first was there was a player from the Colts who used it through a friend's account. So to me, it sounded like, he obviously knew what he was doing if he was using the friend's account. He just like, try to go unnoticed, which kind of makes this a shady situation. But looking back at it, he's one of our best players. I'm not really, happy that this happened, especially since we're thin at corner. But I just think that it's just a dumb situation all in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, and for the part of it of that, you're not gonna beat down on them too much. It's a dumb mistake. I have to disagree with that one. One, I'm glad that we're obviously recording this like a week later than when it came out, because I was absolutely livid. When it came out, just because first and foremost, like my main point is that the rules once you sign on the dotted line.
Yeah.
So I can't excuse it's a dumb mistake. Once or twice is a dumb mistake. The report says that it was multiple upon multiple bets, summing from the ranges of $25 to $50. And like I said, it's a lot off the chat, off the air. For you and I, if you and I have a bet for $5, $10, it doesn't hurt us. $25, $50 for a multi-millionaire is the equivalent to you and I betting like the change in our pocket, like literal pennies. It was that serious that like you said, it was potentially a friend's account, but it was that serious that you need to make bets for minimal amount. What's the outcome? What's the potential payout on that? And even then, it shouldn't matter. The second you get drafted, the second you sign an NFL contract, with some exception there, you join the millionaire club. Even if you don't join the millionaire club, you join the top 10% income club. There's absolutely, you cannot explain me any logical reason why you needed to go and make these numbers of bets. And and lastly, I'll close with this. As a lot of people like to forget, for them, this is a job. So all of anyone watching this, you and I also, we have jobs, we've signed paperwork, contracts, whatever. When it comes to said job, there's a list of rules that you can't do. A case Paul, I use myself. I in my case, I work in a casino. I'm not allowed to gamble in my casino. It's not hypocritical since we're in that business, but it's part of the rules you agree to when you sign on with said organization, whatever. So for me, look, I'm not gonna bash him and be as angry as I was a week ago, but I can't just, even then, I can't just look past it. Oh, it's just a dumb mistake. No, it's idiotic, stupid, and by all means, I'm not saying he deserves death threats or anything like that, but any hateful comments, you're an idiot, you're stupid, have at it, because it's just, there's no reason.
Yeah, just like you said, I actually, I saw multiple reports that it said that he placed hundreds of these small bets, which in the grand scheme of things, like you said, for a millionaire, it's really just change for them. But in the grand scheme of things, if you look at this kid, he's in a contract year.
Mm-hmm.
And this is his first real opportunity to start. I mean, we thought it was going to be like that last year, but then Gus Bradley brought in his own guys, and they're playing him instead. But now, like you finally give this kid the keys, and then this comes out. It's like, man, it's just unbelievable. But in the midst of all of this, one thing I thought was interesting, at least in my opinion, was we look at the suspensions for gambling because they really want to protect the integrity of the game, and you compare the gambling suspensions, say Calvin Ridley, these guys in Detroit, all that, they're all getting suspended a year. You look at guys like Deshaun Watson, look at guys like Ben Roethlisberger, guys like even Tyreek Hill, Kareem Hunt, like people who have committed domestic violence. They weren't suspended full seasons. But these guys who just place a stupid bet on DraftKings, there goes your career. You know what I mean? So I
Mm-hmm.
think that these suspensions are a little harsh in the sense of, like I said, there's guys who are involved in legal trouble. Like, granted, like, is this bad for the game? Absolutely. But, you have players who are involved in legal trouble who are suspended for less. So, we don't know the full details of what Isaiah Rodgers, his suspension is. I know minimum it's going to be at least a year.
Yeah.
It's gonna be minimum a year. But it just really shows you though how much they're trying to protect the integrity of the game.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up too, because it brings an interesting point. Because you mentioned the names. Let's go back to Le'Veon Bell, because everyone remembers his situation, and it comes out with no video, and he got 2 games.
Yeah.
Then the video comes out, and it's, you gave him 2 games for that. And then, like you said, because I believe back then that was when Josh Gordon kept getting suspended, and it was like, you're harsher on weed than you are on DV. Make it make sense, and you're creating that whole debacle. And I'm agreeing with you. You're starting that again now, because you want to get harsh against a gambling thing. And by all means, I'm not like, yes, he broke a rule, he should get punished. I'm with that. But it's like you said, but then you got Deshaun Watson, you have Kareem Hunt, you have even Adrian Peterson. You have a lot of these guys where they've had these DV situations, these off field situations with violence. Which, I mean, I don't want to get into one's worse than the other. Bad is bad, but you're creating that situation when you're giving a lesser punishment to something like putting your hands on somebody, as opposed to, like you said, making bets, which just goes against the rules, and it's about the integrity of the game. You creating this weird situation, and it leads to a part where a lot of people don't like Goodell, feel he has too much power. That's what you get when it comes to a situation like that. And agreeing with you again, you're creating that one more time now, because agreed, Rodgers is looking at a minimum 1 year. Meanwhile, Watson's getting ready to gear up for a full season after only sitting out what he sat out. I think 10 games was the punishment he
Yeah.
got. Yeah, so you now created this weird precedent of gambling on the sport is a lot worse than having multiple upon multiple sexual allegations against you.
Yeah. It's just a weird situation, like I said, and I just think it's just crazy to me how all this happened because the Colts usually the guys that they look to draft, we don't really like to go after like these guys who get involved in trouble like this. Um, so for example, like I don't know, a guy like who's outspoken like Jalen Ramsey, like a guy
Mhm.
that's outspoken like that, or a guy like Tyreek Hill or Kareem Hunt, just like I said, that's just like a player that we would never sign in free agency or trade for. Even if Miami said, "Hey, I'll give you, Tyreek Hill for a bag of chips," I don't think Chris Ballard would do it just because of just for personalities aside. So this is definitely shocking just to see because, like I said, the Colts aren't ever a team that has players involved, you know, like all across the news for trouble like this. You know, having Isaiah Rodgers, his name and the Colts all over every national media outlet last week. That's not something that we usually like to be a part of. Ever since, especially after Manning and Luck, the Colts aren't really a team that's really mainstream in the media,
Mhm.
and I really like being low key. And being in the media for the wrong reasons is definitely something that we try to stay away from. And it's definitely surprising to say the point to say, and especially with all these Twitter arguments with Jaguars fans. It's really ironic, I think, because people would compare you know Ridley and Pittman, and they would talk about how Ridley didn't even play last year because of gambling, and we would make fun of them all the time. And now look
Yep.
at us, we're in the same spot. So, it's just a disappointing situation overall.
Yeah, and especially because not only that, it's like Rodgers as a whole, like you said, Ballard's kind of MO of drafting, building a team has been high character guys, chemistry, no off field problems. And a guy like Isaiah Rodgers, I would say he almost kind of perfectly exemplifies what Chris Ballard looks for in terms of building this team. And he's kind of the maybe not a poster boy, but he's what you want to use as an example for success. Because Isaiah Rodgers was a fifth round pick. He wasn't slated to be, CB1 like he was for us this year. But his young Colts career at plenty of times was probably the best corner on the roster. And like as I mentioned in the Millionaire Club, like you said, this is a contract year. He needs this season to really get paid. As a fifth round pick, obviously he's making good money, compared to you and I, compared to the everyday American. But in the NFL world, he's low on that totem pole. This was his year to gear up for that big payday. Talk to any former athlete, they say the second paycheck you get is the one where you really make the most of your money, if not all of your money.
Yeah.
So not only is his world kind of coming crashing down at the absolute wrong time, it's gonna hurt him in a lot of ways, and ironically enough, in his paycheck more than anything.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, especially just like you said, it was time for him to, really make a big impact this year, contract year. It's time for him to get paid, and it really just didn't happen. So, you know, now we go from he could potentially get a big payday to is he ever going to play again?
Yeah,
So it's just, I don't really know the details of how the punishment works because some people are talking about if he bet on games that weren't involved with the Colts, that he's still going to get a year for that. But I was hearing if he was betting on the Colts games either for or against, he might not ever play again. So it's really really hard to say if he is going to play again, but I think it's just a matter of he had a big opportunity and he messed up. So it's just crazy to see. It's like you said, he's a fifth round pick. He was grinding his way up, and just to see dumb stuff like this happen, especially from like somebody who makes 6 7 figures. You know these little $25 $50 bets are stuff that it's just bets that we usually do
yeah,
as fans. So it's just dumb. It's just really dumb.
yeah. And so it kind of leads into we talked about a little bit. I mean, I don't think it's gonna be a long conversation, but so Gulik, it we were already thin at corner. We did draft three of them this past draft. We obviously didn't necessarily play on the market when it came to the position. Is do you? I'm not gonna say do you think because I think we kind of err on the side of Ballard doesn't really play the free agency game, but I'll pose it this way: do you Like if you had your keys on the controls, are you jumping into the FA market and bringing in a veteran guy? Because it was already a young room. It just got younger.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at it like this, I wouldn't want to really bring in somebody who would really take snaps away from the new guys. But at the same time, I think it is important that you do have a veteran in here just to give leadership and advice. Um, I was just thinking about this earlier today. If Stephon Gilmore wasn't traded before the draft, if he was still on the team, you know, like right now we need him.
Yeah.
Right, like right now we need him really bad. Um, but let's just say, for example, like we're just talking about this off air. Let's just say we bring in Casey Hayward. That was a big name from last year. At this point, he's 33. He to me, that's not a guy who would play every game. I wouldn't expect him to play 17 games. But for example, that's a guy who I would pay to come in here on a vet minimum, just to give the guys in the room a little more guidance, because right now we have Kenny Moore at slot. You have Julius Brents, Juju, who was drafted second round. He's probably going to be a day one starter. But then we have Darius Rush and Jalen Jones. One was a fifth round pick, one's a seventh round pick. Are you going to throw those guys into the fire? Isaiah Rodgers was a fifth round pick. But if people remember, he kind of came in, at first just as a punt returner, I believe. He was just a punt returner.
Yeah, he
didn't
was
really
a special teamer.
Yeah,
Special
he
teamer,
was
gunner,
special.
punt return. So yeah.
Yeah, he was a special teamer. He wasn't really, getting snaps at corner until really the end of his rookie season against Buffalo in that playoff game. That's when he really started showing some flashes. And then year 2 was when, it started to come along. But are we really going to throw a fifth round pick out there day one? That might be kind of rough. So I'm kind of indifferent on it. I think you should just bring somebody in on a vet minimum just to give some veteran leadership in there. But it's this quarterback room is just really 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 young, and I think that the first few weeks definitely are they're kind of gonna be rough. It's kind of gonna be rough.
Yeah, and the other thing too is like you don't want to break these kids either, because you remember Rock Yassin, we drafted him in the second round, and obviously was the prototype CB1, had all of the physical tools, and we just threw him to the fire. And because if I remember correctly, I think his welcome to the league moments, I want to correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like his first like 3-4 assignments in the league were Julio Jones, Cooper Kupp, and then I think Cortland Sutton.
Yeah.
Where that's 3, again, obviously kind of tiered skill levels there, but 2 of those guys are absolute dogs. And Cortland Sutton, back in the time, he was looking to be next up. And as I've ventured, at least with our division, we don't face much in terms of weapons on the outside. Outside of Pittman, Ridley's probably the next best, receiver threat. Because after that, it's Treylon Burks, Christian Kirk. Look, I gotta be honest, I can't tell you who's playing receiver in Houston. So, so at least divisionally, you're getting kind of eased into the league. Obviously, if we go around the rest of the AFC, that whole picture changes.
Yeah.
But we saw with Rock Yassin, and his rookie season was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. He was Mr. DPI, constantly getting burnt. It was bad. He grew into something later, ultimately used him as trade bait. But agreeing with you, you drafted Juju. He's probably almost forced into CB1 now. Darius Rush as a 5th round pick was an absolute steal. Before I was saying he's probably going to get eased into it. Now he's got to get fast forwarded. So the rookie, this room has to grow up quick. And lastly, even then, with the safeties, it's young guys back there also with Blackman and Nick Cross and Ronnie McLeod. So Ronnie Thomas. So the whole secondary room is a bunch of kids, and then Kenny Moe. And Kenny Moe's only 27. So I've said it's a youth movement on this team, but outside of quarterback, corner is definitely probably the hardest position to transition to from college going into the pros. So I have faith in Gus Bradley and this staff, but obviously Rodgers being out, and like you said, mentioned, there's no veteran on the sideline or on the bottom half of this depth chart. It's going to be rough, and hopefully it does not come back to burn us.
Yeah, I agree. And, this also really just puts pressure on the defensive line because the defensive line, the quicker they get to the quarterback or the quicker that they, you know, get pressure, it puts less pressure on the DBs. So, I think as a whole, it just kind of hurts everybody. But it's definitely going to be a rough first few weeks, at least in that department.
Yeah, and it leaves a lot to be desired. And the crazy part is like we're still learning. That's the thing. It's still under investigation. We don't even know everything yet. Technically, there's no punishment yet. I
Yeah.
don't think he's been with the team during OTAs, but obviously we can safely assume he's not playing it down to football this year. But we don't know what's going to happen, and we're going to leave it off here for another show. But so thanks all you guys for tuning in and listening. It's been a grind, and the season's right around the corner, sitting in the month of June. Football is coming. We know when the schedule is. You guys know that first 56 tailgate is coming. Details for that are going to come on a later show. Be on the lookout for that. Be on the tune for that. If you're not following us or Sideline Sports, make sure you're doing that. Sideline Sports YouTube channel. You're going to catch this show and all of the other shows incorporated with Sideline Sports. Follow us on Twitter at First 56 at FIRST, and 56 is the handle. On behalf of myself, Gulick, Marcus, who could not be here, Sideline Sports as an organization, 156 as a team. We will guys catch you on the next one. For now, we are out.